there, everybody, and thanks again for joining us here on Expanded Perspectives with me, Cam Hale. And as always, I can't do this without him. The peanut butter to my jelly, like we talked about, the queso to my burrito, Mr. Filio Filson.
How's it going, everybody? Yes, I'm here in Skeleton Studios, admiring the craftsmanship of painted minis that your host Cam has been working on. He's got this large ogre, which holds an iPad.
That's true, yeah.
And it looks like, once again, you've started down the path of a new hobby. I think your hobby is learning new hobbies.
I think you're right.
So now there's paint brushes. I'm like, did I just walk into the wrong studio?
I have an airbrush. I just don't have my compressor in here. It's out in the shop. I didn't bring it all.
No, this is a recording studio. We don't need an air compressor in here.
Well,
we spent a lot of money trying to soundproof the room.
I don't need a compressor running.
We're not bringing stuff in here.
That's true. Yeah, I never thought I was going to get addicted to it like that. Like, we talked about it when we first saw it.
I remember a long time ago when I was a teenager, playing Dungeons and Dragons and things like that. And I remember the minis. They were like Raul Partha, and they were all cast out of like pewter and stuff. But that was like all there was. I don't remember. Like now, of course, a lot of time's gone by. It's just like everything else. Now, when you look into that world, there's 40 different manufacturers of different minis,
Yeah, it used to be Whiz Kids is kind of like the thing now that's licensed for Dungeons and Dragons.
Right, but there's all types of other companies that are doing it. And, of course, with the invention of 3D printing.
Now, that's where it gets fun.
There's all services like that now where you can print your own minis at home. And not that I want to get involved in 3D printing and stuff, but I'm just saying.
I think I'm going to.
There's a lot more. That makes sense. There's a lot more options. And it's just like everything else. And it's got to be a guy thing, right? Just guys nonstop tinkering with stuff.
My wife looks at me and shakes her head at least once a day. But
why did I marry that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
of
for
all
sure.
the fish in the sea.
Yeah.
This is the trailer I hitched myself to.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, look.
I don't blame her.
Oh, I don't blame her.
I think about it all the time. Like, of all the people I could help podcast with, it has to be this knucklehead.
That's right.
Like, what did I do in my past?
The sucker G.
Carry on.
Yeah. Look, it all started with that, X that does the 3D printing for us, our buddy. I was talking to him, and then I got to watching it, and then, of course, what ends up happening, this is pretty much how it goes every night of the week, folks. I will be up because I'll stay up late, too, and I know Kyle does, and then I'll get on YouTube, or he'll get on YouTube, and we won't even know it, right? And we'll go down a rabbit hole, and about 11:30, one of our phones will go off, and that'll be me texting him or him texting me, and then we send the other one down the rabbit hole, and then that's where this whole thing starts, and that's what happened to me with this damn mini addiction. I love the idea of fantasy characters, right? I always have. And now it is truly endless. There are so many places you can get badass stuff to 3D print. And the 3D printers really aren't that expensive anymore.
I don't know anything about them. I know that some of them take like line, looks like weed eater line.
I'm doing resin.
Yeah, I don't know the difference. I'm
going to get a resin.
I almost started looking into it, and then I'm like, I'm not going to look into it.
Well, I said I wouldn't. But guess what? I'm going to have one. So get ready. You're going to be looking into it.
Well, I'll send Luke over here because Luke, if you could find some plans for some Predator
I got
figurines and you could print them off and then he could just paint them, he'd be in hog heaven. I'm telling you.
Yeah, I can already feel it. It's going. I wished I'd have never looked at it. It's one of those things that you wished you could forget. I wished I could forget because I really do enjoy it. And I remember you and I used to paint models and mess around with that when we were kids, like everybody else back in the day. And then like you talked about, we were painting the Raul Partha figurines and really enjoying doing that. And I had forgotten how much fun it was, where I would just sit down, get my paints out and get the brushes out. And like we said, and just kind of just listen to music, just whatever, put on something in the background and just kind of go at it.
Do you know what got me into modeling as a kid?
Probably because you had really good looking feet. I remember you used to do a lot of foot modeling and hand modeling.
No. Like the creation of models, building models. When I was a kid, I was obsessed with like jets and helicopters.
I remember the very first time I ever came to your house, there was at least a dozen of them with eye screws screwed into his ceiling, folks, and fishing line tied to them. Yeah. And the entire ceiling in his room looked like it was aerial combat. There was at least a dozen planes up there.
Well, for whatever reason, I don't know if I was a fighter pilot in a previous life, but I was obsessed with jets and like helicopters. So as a kid, I was never satisfied with the toys they made. Like if they made a toy of an F-14 The like most realistic one you could get was a G.I. Joe one. They had an F-14 Tomcat, but like all the other jets,
You wanted a real
they
one.
looked like crap. So what I would do is I would go get a model. You could go get a tester or something model kit for $25, build it, paint it, do all the decals, and now I'd have a toy. So I would just build models
And it
then
looked real.
I would have a toy. Now I could play with my toy plane, and it looked like a real F-16, not some kind of crap.
So I'll tell you this.
That's how it started as a kid. So over years, it got to be where I had quite a collection. I don't have any of that stuff anymore.
Like I sent you those pictures. You'll get back into it.
See, that's why I don't even want to look at it.
Yeah, you'll get back into it.
A couple more years when the kids move off.
You're going to be that old man that's got a room in his house, and that's all he does. He goes in there, like we talked about, tying flies. You'll be tying flies and making models.
But somehow, like if you're into model trains, you have to dress like a conductor. Like, do I have to wear like a flight suit if I'm building planes?
Yeah. You got to wear like the
rules.
attack helmet, which got the glasses on it, your aviator glasses if you're building it.
Yeah, see, that's what's so strange. And like around here, too, there's people that dress like cowboys. On the weekend, there's these guys riding their Harley Davidsons. They're dressed like bikers. But yet these same people hate on LARPing.
Yeah, that's
Like
true.
I saw these idiots in the park playing sword fight, and they were dressed like a wizard. I'm like, there's LARPing all around.
You got to dress the part.
This is only a guy thing. I think.
Yeah, it's for sure.
That's not true. On Halloween, the girls, no matter what the outfit is, they have to take it to another degree. Like, I'm a nurse, but they're not really dressed like a nurse. You know what I'm insinuating.
And I don't have a problem.
I don't have a problem either.
Hey,
but I'm
speaking of, now that you bring that up, so you've watched enough, and I know all y'all listening to cosplay, right?
Yeah.
And you've seen some of the where they look like Robotech, or maybe it's Warhammer or whatever, where those guys are like the big robots. I've thought about this. Imagine if you saw that. You want to mess with somebody. Imagine you saw that at 3:00 in the morning, like just turned down an alleyway, look like a giant robot guy, because they look real enough. I often wonder if some of these crazy sightings could be people cosplaying or messing around, because if you go online and start looking at those, there are people that have unbelievable talent at being able to recreate some of that stuff well enough that it would fool you at a distance.
Oh, I'm sure. Like,
where you're like,
I want to go. I actually do want to, and Luke wants to go with me, no shocker. We really want to go to Comic-Con in San Diego one year.
Oh, are we going to try to go to the Frightmare?
Yeah, that's here in Dallas. Well, if coronavirus doesn't have everything shut down by then.
Are you going to ReaperCon with me in 2 weeks in Denton? That's where Reaper Miniatures, that's their home, and they have ReaperCon. And it's a bunch of miniatures and paint. Why am I even asking? You're going. I'm just going to come by and get you and Luke. You're going.
What is the award for the best paint?
The Golden Demon,
the
baby.
Golden Demon Award.
I'm going to win a Golden Demon.
I'm sure you will. I thank you to everybody wishing me a happy birthday. Just had that the other day.
I knew I forgot something.
And I can't believe how fast time flies, right? My older boys, just
Time
started high
slipping
school.
away as fast as your hair.
Well, I don't got much of that left.
Well, that ain't no joke. It's not receding, bro. It's hauling ass.
Yeah, there's nothing left.
It's on your shoulders.
I wish I could grow. The mullets are back.
You got an inverted mullet.
Yeah, reverse mohawk.
That's true.
I remember a couple of years ago, I might have told this story on the show. The boys, we let them do whatever they want with their hair when school's out. Most of the time they dye it a color.
Yeah.
They're like, Dad, I know, let's all grow mohawks. And I'm like, bro, do you think I cut my hair like this on purpose?
Yeah.
I can't grow a mohawk. I'd love to be part of that club.
Yeah. Not going to happen, bro.
But I can't.
You can grow a Gallagher.
I can grow hair in my ears.
Yeah. Dude, a Gallagher would be awesome if you just let it get shoulder length. What is it? Michael Johansson style.
Oh, the dirty hippie?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a disc golf reference for all you folks. Folks, I have a crazy story for you.
Yeah, let's get into it.
Speaking of dirty hippies, this actually has nothing to do with dirty hippies, but it has something to do with Charleston, South Carolina, which I plan on going to. Look, I like the Carolinas. After going up there in April, you people live in a really, really amazing place.
I think, what's his name lives in Charleston?
The man that makes the chews?
No.
The guy that invented the two-step?
Bill Murray. I think Bill Murray lives there.
No, word. So get a load of this, folks. This is how it starts. I'll start off by saying I've never believed in anything paranormal. I'm a pretty science-based dude. I always look for a logical explanation, and I still am for this encounter, so if you have any ideas, let me know. I live just south of Charleston, South Carolina. I don't have much time for leisure with work this past year, but been having to accept some pretty awful shifts to get by with COVID times, so I've lost my ability to go on my evening walks, which are a method of stress relief for me. It had been a while since I'd gone on one, so 3 nights ago, I decided to just go for a late night walk. I put on my headband flashlight and decided to take a path I hadn't in ages. There's a small trail near the back of my neighborhood that goes about 4 miles deep into the woods. My plan was to walk about 1.5 miles in and then take the parallel path to come back out. So I make it down to around 1.3 according to my Fitbit, and I start getting that feeling that I'm being watched. I turn off my headlight and sit still to listen. It's at this point I'm more concerned there's a guy following me who was up to no good. I heard clear footsteps in the leaves off the trail, and they've been behind me now for nearly 5 minutes. I stopped thinking it was an animal or another walker and became worried. Sitting there for probably 3 or 4 minutes and I hear nothing at all, I turn back on my headlight and decide to start walking back quickly to get back home. About 2 minutes later, I hear those footsteps again. This time it sounds different. Sounds like 4 feet instead of 2. And it's walking at the same increased speed that I am. So I turned around quickly with my headlight and my phone light and I point it behind me. Silence. Now I get angry and I yell out, "Leave me alone! I'm gonna call the cops! And if you come at me, I have a knife." Again, silence. So I yell, "Get the hell out of here." And I start walking towards where I heard the walking sounds. Listen to the jingles on this guy, right? Walking in the dark. Ooh.
Don't announce you have a knife. Say you have a gun.
Yeah, right.
If you're just going to bluff,
do what you want to the girls. Just leave me alone.
Bluff a little harder. Like, I've got a Desert Eagle .50. Right. You know, I've got a 375 Wildy Magnum. Not, I got my Swiss Army knife.
Right.
I took Taekwondo one time.
I got a green belt. Look out. About 20 yards out, hard to fully make out because the flashlight doesn't reach that far, I see what looks like a literal naked man running full speed on all 4s into the woods.
Oh, geez.
How do you run full speed on all 4s? We're going to try that. We're going to get naked and give this a whirl.
You never had to do bear crawls when you were in high school?
Oh, yeah. But usually it's because I was in trouble.
Not fun.
And there were some details that led me to believe it wasn't a person. For one, it was damn near hairless, completely bald, pale white skin, and the way it ran on all 4s looked natural. Not like when you try to run all 4s and look stupid. It looked like its bone structure was designed to walk on all 4s. There was no hunched look. The back was flat, and it was fast. Last thing that happened was straight out of a horror movie. I hadn't heard anything in a while on my way back, but I kept turning around to be sure. With about 0.3 of a mile left to go until I was clear, I hear a mad dash through the leaves. I whip around and the sound stops on a dime. I see the edges of its head behind a tree. I yelled loudly and tried to intimidate it. What I heard next I'll never forget in my entire life. It cackled. It cackled like a monkey.
Oh,
yeah.
I don't know how
perfect.
Cackle.
Pretty close. A noise I've literally only heard in nature documentaries. The tone was that of mockery, a predator having fun with me. Well, I didn't stick around. I sprinted as fast as possible back home. Now, I'd love to believe this was some prank or some rabid, bald, diseased coyote, but I got a pretty clear look at it, and it wasn't. It had human feet and human hands, a human head, and a human buttocks. But nothing else about it was human. I called the cops after.
How do you describe that to the cops? That's a bad move because they're going to lock you up.
They're going to throw, yeah, exactly. He said he told him that a man was following me. I didn't want to say some creature because they'd think I'm crazy.
Good call on you, buddy.
Right? Says they didn't find anything, but they did see quite a bit of activity in the leaves and dirt about 50 foot from where the trail was, leading far back into the woods before it got to a large stretch of grass where there were no footprints seen. So please, someone, tell me, am I crazy, or was this some elaborate prank or a deformed man? thinks T.
Wow.
You know what it was? It's a rake. It's
Yeah,
a
that's what it
pale
sounds like,
crawler.
right?
That's what
When,
it is.
when you're first describing the old man, all I can think of is like the old man in the video Unforgiven by Metallica. Back in the day when they used to actually play music videos.
It's true. This is true. Yeah. So that's another pale crawler. After we've discussed these things, there are several sightings keep popping up, man.
And the not deer as well.
Exactly. It's one of those things that I think there's been a lot more encounters and a lot more sightings, just people weren't willing to talk about them.
I think you're probably right.
Yeah.
Check this out. We have fans all over the world. They're amazing. This is one from one of our fans in Poland. It says, hello, guys. I've been listening to your podcast since 2014. I always wanted to send you some paranormal stories from my family that I have gathered. However, I was always worried that I won't be able to write them as my English is not my first language. Heck, it's not even my second one, but here I am and I will try my best. As I said, I like to gather paranormal stories from my family members. I have a lot of them, and some are really disturbing. But this one is the oldest one I've heard. It happened to my grandmother just after the Second World War, in the autumn of 1945 in Poland. My grandmother was 14 years old at the time. Now, few words about where it happened, as my grandmother was telling the stories, always thought it was very relevant or somehow linked to the history of the place. My grandmother lived and still lives in a very small village in Poland. It has only about 900 inhabitants now, but when it happened, it probably was a bit more, 1,000 maybe. The village is located around a huge old forest. There was a monastery there during medieval times, on a hill at the edge of it, but it was destroyed by fire. That's a historical fact, and there are documents describing the event, but no one is sure where exactly the monastery stood. Most likely now the forest has consumed it when it was spreading through the hundreds of years of growth. As a very religious person, my grandma thinks what happened to her is associated with the monastery and its unusual history. Now, the locals believe that the monastery was actually destroyed by God himself in rage because the monks used to actually cause sin with other female monks and perform satanic rituals. Of course, that's just a legend, and there are no actual facts to support this. In the early autumn of 1945, the country was destroyed by war, first by the Germans and later by the Soviet counterattack. So food was scarce. Polish people love picking up mushrooms, and nowadays it's like a family pastime to spend time together and enjoy nature. At the time, it was also necessary to survive. Mushrooms were a source of food that was lacking, and so my grandma went to the forest in search of mushrooms to collect, to cook, and to eat. It was just a normal day, walking around the forest looking for mushrooms until she found herself moving through some thick bushes. And that's when she found herself standing at the edge of a circular field of grass in the middle of the forest. She noticed that the field was a perfect circle of maybe 15 to 20 meters in diameter. She described it as the most perfect circle she had ever seen. The trees around were growing in a perfect line around the circle. Not even one branch was reaching to the interior. The circle was full of green, beautiful short grass. As she walked to the edge of it, suddenly all the background sound was gone, like if you put your head underwater. She wasn't deaf completely, as she could still hear the sounds made by herself, like leaves under her feet when she walked. But all of the background sounds, the wind, the trees, the birds, the insects, they were suddenly all gone, like someone had unplugged the sound. The other worst thing was the feeling she got. She felt something really evil coming from the field, and she could feel that whatever it was desperate to lure her into the center of that field. It wasn't like she could hear this thing talking. No. It was just the feeling in the air. Something very malicious was desperate to make her go inside this circular grassy field to do something bad. And it was angry. She said whatever it was desperate. Like this thing's very existence depended on this act. Grandma was, of course, very scared and understood that she has to walk away, and no matter what, she should not enter that field. So she turned and started to walk away. After a short stroll, she moved through some more dense bushes, and then there she was, standing again in the very same place, at the edge of the grassy field circle. It was the exact same place. It wasn't like she walked around and was on the opposite side of it. She was in the exact same spot. She could even see the grass bent previously by her feet, and the exact same trees surrounding the field. Now she also felt whatever it was getting angry and more impatient to lure her inside of the field. She said she turned exactly 180 degrees away from the field and made sure to walk in a perfectly straight line through the forest and away from the field. But it didn't work. She was on the very same spot shortly later. Again, she tried 2 or 3 times more, but every time with the same result. Walking away in a straight line, moving through thick trees and bushes to end up standing in the very same place. The presence in the field, she said, was getting angrier. I asked my grandmother how many times, and she said she couldn't tell. She didn't remember. She couldn't explain it. It was just something that she felt in the air. Big evil presence with very malicious intent, being desperate to let her into the field to do something bad to her, like its very existence depended on it. Grandma, at this point, was getting desperate. Grandma! She knew there was no escape, so she did the only logical thing she thought she could do at the time. She sat on the edge and started praying to God to save her. After some long time of crying and praying, she hears a distant sound behind her. It's the sound of a cow. It was very far away, but due to the complete silence and lack of other sounds, it was very clear. It was definitely the sound of a cow, but far away. She rose to her feet, listening. There it was again. She started to walk towards the sound while still praying. The sound was rare, but it was repeating. With each step, she could hear it was getting closer. Unlike before with her many attempts to leave the circular field, only to come upon it again and again, this time it appeared she was making some actual progress. She was still walking and could tell she was getting closer and closer to the cow. She assumed there must be another field or meadow, and this cow must be in it outside of the forest. Then she could hear the cow very clearly. It couldn't have been more than 4 meters away by now. As she pressed on, she came upon a clearing formed between the trees. She started to run those last few steps to hear this cow she could clearly hear despite all of the other sounds still being completely silent. She burst out of the forest into another field or pasture, another clearing. Suddenly, all of the sounds were back, like someone plugged it in again. She was standing in a pasture with the fields and the village below the hill. All of the sounds were back. The wind, the birds, the insects, all except the cow. There wasn't any, not any in sight. This meadow was completely empty. She looked back thinking that the cow might have entered the forest, but didn't see it, and also didn't dare go back to the forest to look for it, and she ran back home. Now, my grandmother believes that what happened was somehow linked to the monastery, the one with the sinful monks, and it was God who saved her hearing her prayers. She's a very religious person, so she also believes that whatever it was in the field had to be the devil. She said that later on she thought that it had to be trapped there for centuries and was looking for someone to possess so it could be free. Now, I'm not a religious person, so I don't know what to think of it. Was it some spirits, bad energy, different dimension? I don't know. I know that the story is true. My grandmother's very old and she wouldn't make it up. My grandmother went back to the forest many times after that, but always felt scared remembering what happened on that day. I also went there numerous times without any experiences. But that forest in particular I can tell you saw a lot of death. There were lots of heavy fights during the 2 wars, and it's a very popular place to commit suicide, not only by the locals, but also people who come there from around the country. Thank you for your time reading the story. I hope my poor English didn't ruin it. Thanks, Gabrielle. Wow.
Wow.
So thank you first and foremost, our Polish friend, for listening.
English is fine.
English was fine. It was written better than I could write.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
And I'm jealous because you mentioned that English is like one of possibly 3 languages, maybe more, that you know.
I got to learn another one.
I'm always jealous of it. Well, Caleb is starting French, and I'm like, why don't you learn Spanish? Makes sense.
Yeah.
Live in Texas. Anyways.
My daughter speaks the unspoken language.
What is that?
Sign language.
Oh, I got you. I know a few signs, I guess.
Yeah, you know, yeah, yeah. Yeah, because remember, she did it. Yeah, she got all of her awards.
Now, you remember there was people that learned, I remember seeing a book a long time ago, like in Walden Books, where you could learn to speak Klingon. And like people really spoke it. Well, now they're doing it with Dothraki.
Did you see how also easy it is for children to learn sign language? Like infants to learn sign language. Like, it's wild.
I think most children can pick up a language way easier than
Doesn't it feel like that's something we should learn?
Multiple languages?
Yeah, like we should learn Spanish. Like I used to be able to speak it, I'd say about 40%. I was pretty good about 40% of it.
I think we should go to the metric system, and I think we should come up with one universal language. Stop all this nonsense. 1,600 different languages. This is ridiculous.
So let me ask you that. What Gabrielle is describing sounds like the circles of like the fey circles is what it sounds like.
Sounds like, right?
Because you see them whenever you see them, like a ring of mushrooms, a ring of trees, like, I don't know. It just, God, that's awesome. And
she said that it felt like some presence was trying to lure her into the circle, which is what you hear when it comes to stories of puckwudgies or fey folk or.
Don't eat or drink anything they give you.
Don't. Although that does sound like an awesome time. I know in Joshua's books.
Yeah.
But you know, it was like she couldn't escape. It was like a loop. No matter which direction she went to leave the forest, she always ended up in the same spot.
It's almost like that's like we talk about with the time slips, right? Mm-hmm. Like it falls involved in that, and like then you can't get out. Like the time loop. Maybe that's what it kind of was, or maybe it was one of those deals like they thought because maybe she was older, or whatever it was, that they could break her down easier. I don't know. You don't.
Well, she was 14 at the time that it happened to her.
Well, but she's talking about her grandmother too.
That's what I'm saying. This happened to her grandmother when her grandmother's 14.
So maybe it is with the kids. Do you think it's because we get reports of the kids seeing it? What could it have?
My first question
would make it grow in a circle.
I don't know. But if it was me and she said that her grandmother was out picking mushrooms to eat because food was scarce during the time, did she eat some of those mushrooms before she had this encounter?
That's a possibility.
Just saying.
But you would think too, if her grandmother's out collecting mushrooms, she knows which ones are probably psychedelic and which ones are not.
I'm sure.
Like after the rains like this, and I can take you to go find some if you want to go.
That's what I'm saying, though. It's like if I knew the difference and I was 14 and I know my 14-year-old self, I'd be seeking out those. These are for eating.
Yeah.
These morels are excellent with butter and stuff. Yeah. These are good.
These over here you want
to eat before you go looking for them.
I wasn't much older than that whenever I had my first mushrooms. So
I remember you used to find them. We used to call you Truffle Pig because you could find them like nobody's business. That's our Truffle Pig over there.
Master of the mushroom. Again, a creepy story. I do appreciate sending that all the way. Dude, it's just great.
Yeah, cool.
It's a fae story, and I love the idea of fae stories. I still think that the majority of the nonsense that goes on in the woods have a lot to do with that.
But why does it seem like it's more believable like in Poland? Like I just think about the forest there. For me, it seems much more likely than you were talking about like South Carolina.
Well, I know
that's ridiculous because trees are trees. It doesn't matter. Those trees don't know they're in Transylvania or Poland or Romania.
I wonder if all the listeners out there that are in other countries, is there certain stories that you feel make more sense when you hear it comes from here? Like a Bigfoot story.
I think it's probably our perception, just like their perception is Texas is like Old West movies when it's that's not like that.
Well, not all of it.
A big portion of it's not. I would say more of it is not like that than the parts that are.
That's true. Yeah.
So when I think in my mind of Poland is only pictures I've seen from like World War II.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or horror movies or something.
Yeah.
So it's probably totally not like that.
It's beautiful areas over there, but yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that is funny how it does always seem to fall in here. I've got you another one coming over here that I got from Lon about another pale crawler. The reason I enjoy this one is this makes me think of the Huffmans, because here's from one from Indiana. All right, you ready for this?
Yep.
Says earlier in 2020, when lockdown was going on, my girlfriend and I were getting bored sitting around. So sometime during the day or later that night, we would just hop in my car and drive around and talk. Well, one night around 12:45 or 1 in the morning, we're driving this back road by her house that's just trees and forests for miles. The road was empty and there are no houses, so I have my brights on going around a corner. Well, as soon as the road straightened out, I slammed on my brakes and saw an almost pure white creature in the middle of the road. I only caught a glimpse, but it was squatting with really long legs, super long arms, and an incredibly humanoid figure. The posture it had while squatting was very human-like, except its elbows almost touched the pavement. My girlfriend screamed, and within a second of seeing it, it ran on all fours like a blur to a tree by the road and just jumped into it. The area of the tree it landed in was at least 15 to 20 foot off the ground, and when it jumped, I could see it slightly stretch out. I had never heard of a rake before, but I told my best friend this encounter, and he showed me photos of the rake. Now, I've driven by that area a lot since then, and I haven't seen it again. Anyone else seen something similar? I wonder. I didn't see any teeth. The head was pretty human-shaped, and its face was pretty long. Blackish, sunk-in eyes, a longer nose, and its mouth was closed. It ran away and hid in that tree as if it knew it shouldn't be seen. But it didn't seem animalistic. Hell, I'd say it's at least 6.5, 7 foot in length. It looked directly at the car before it ran, and it was incredibly thin, almost bony. And yes, its thighs and calves were really long. Now, this occurred in June of 2020. I honestly don't know the road. It's near US 37 and 191st Street in Noblesville, Indiana, in Hamilton County at around 12:45 to 1 a.m. TG. So again, another possible sighting of a rake or a pale crawler, this time in Indiana.
What could people be mistaking for that, though?
There's nothing you could mistaken for that. Like the first one they talked about, like you would think you've seen like a mangy, pale coyote. It's not even that.
Yeah, no, it does.
It's a human figure.
Yeah, no. Coyotes do not look anything remotely human.
There's nothing that's not a bear. That's not a escaped primate from the zoo. That's not none of that crap that everybody tries to tell you. That's not it. What they're seeing is something paranormal. That is not, it's nothing else. There's nothing else you could mistake for it.
Do you think the sightings are increasing, or do you think that the reports of actual sightings are increasing?
I think the reports.
That's what I think.
I think the reports, people are finally coming forward because it's easier to find something online. It's easier to realize, oh, hey, that's what I saw. Just like they pointed out, hey, I told my friend started showing me pictures. You know, how else would you find out this is where I can send it? I can send it to Lon. You know, I can send it to the guys here. I can send it to her. There's more of those out there.
Mm-hmm.
So much more of those, folks. I have another one here for you. It says, 2 of my friends who are a married couple and I were walking on my family land in North Alabama. It's about 170 acres and heavily wooded with both pine trees and hardwoods and heavily trailed. It was dark, but my friends wanted me to take them out walking on the trails. A couple of neighbors' dogs followed us, a hound dog and a Great Pyrenees, and we walked south, then east to my camping area. We were hanging out at my camping spot when behind us, further back the trail we had come, the dogs started acting strange. We were looking back, and they came out of the woods to our left and just stood on the trail. The Great Pyrenees started growling real low and looking defensive. Now, the hound dog, he's kind of a goofball, but he was also acting disturbed about something. They were both looking back down the trail to the west. I immediately got quite a strange and serious feeling. It was a bit ominous, honestly. I've learned to trust my gut, which I recommend to anybody in the woods, or if around a person or animal that you feel instinctively is threatening. Anyway, I said to my friends, well, we better get back to the house. To get my point across, I sort of grimly added, now. Well, we were heading west on the trail and the dogs, if I remember correctly, had vacated the area. While walking, I looked back and saw my one friend, the wife, looking into the woods off the trail and stagger back a few steps. I and her husband asked what was wrong. Now, by the way, this is the area where the dogs had previously been growling. She said, I'll tell you when we get back. I don't want to scare you. And I don't want to scare David. He kind of is easily scared. So we get back and ask what she saw. She tells us that she felt she needed to look off the trail into the trees. And when she did, she saw something halfway behind a tree looking at her. And we all had our headlamps on. She said it was a pale whitish thing with an oval kind of shaped head. Looked like it was crouching with long limbs. And she kept stressing how skinny it was, particularly the limbs. And she said it had a surprised look on his face, like it didn't expect us to be there. Now, myself and friends, and also relatives, have used these trails regularly, but not at night. Now, she said the thing was bobbing back and forth in a kind of creepy way, like moving its head behind the tree and then swaying its head and shoulders back rhythmically to look at her. She said it didn't appear to be aggressive at the moment, but it looked scary as hell. Now, I pulled up the famous trail cam pic of the crawler or whatever it is, and she got a shocked look on her face and nodded yes. However, she made clear that it wasn't exactly the same. Now, the next night I was on the back porch and I heard a freaky, very shrill scream come from the woods. I don't know if the two were related, but I've lived in the country for most of my life and I've never heard anything like it. This is one of multiple things that have happened around here, but this is the only one that I know of involving this creature, and this is in northern Alabama. Thanks, Kay.
What the heck?
Uh-huh. Oh, it doesn't stop there, bro.
You know, that she mentioned that the neighbor's dog was a Great Pyrenees.
Yep.
You know that Great Pyrenees have 6 toes? And if a Great Pyrenees doesn't have 6 toes, it's not purebred.
It's not a pure Pyrenees.
That's right.
I've had interactions with those things while we were hunting in South Texas, where people, just turn them loose out there.
Great Pyrenees?
Oh yeah, because they make great protection dogs.
They're good for cattle.
Oh yeah, and sheep. And they would be down, like we were in Ozone and whatnot, they'd be down there. But you don't ever go over there and pet them. Like they're not family dogs of whenever the ones I was dealt with. Like literally the dude would feed them, but they pretty much lived with the herd.
Yeah, they're big.
Get a load of this. A person says, X wants to name anonymous, sends this in, says, this didn't happen to me.
X is going to give it to you.
That's right. X is going to give it to you. R.I.P. to the DMX.
Yeah,
right?
Come on, X, give it to us.
That's right. This was my younger sister's experience last year in October of 2020. My sister is extremely religious, and so is my mother. My sister dismissed it as an evil spirit, but recalled it today and thought it was something like sleep paralysis. I then told her about crawlers and described them to her, and she said that looked exactly like what she had seen. Last year in October 2020, my sister woke up in the middle of the night. She said she woke up because she felt as if something was watching her and felt some kind of fear. She looked at her wall and said she saw a tall, dark figure and felt as if it was staring at her. My sister said it was extremely skinny, much more skinny than a human could possibly be. Its arms hung down to its knees. She said it was taller than 6 feet, and she said that she could see its eyes but couldn't recall their color. She also said that she believes they were glowing but can't remember. She unfortunately was unable to get a good look at it.
Isn't that something you would remember?
Unless it's the shock or the sleep terror, because it may have been paralysis.
I got you.
Because it says she panicked and ran out of her room into my mom's room and hid under my mom's blankets. Neither she nor my mother went back in the room to check until they both woke up again the next morning. And of course, there was nothing in there. Now she says that her bedroom door was closed and so were her windows. Now I believe it could have possibly been just a bad dream, but at the same time, I'm interested. because she said it looked just like my description of a crawler. It's weird. Now, you ready for this? Because I've never heard of anyone seeing crawlers in Jamaica.
Right down by the beach, man. Yeah, of course. Why wouldn't they be there?
And then ZC sends this in. It says, my friends and I went backroading today through our local area, supposedly haunted hotspot. We drove for at least 2 hours through the back roads and didn't really see anything, just a bunch of wild animals, until we made it to a spot where there was a field that went up a hill with a lot of trees. Now I shine my spotlight out into the field, see if I could catch anything, and about 60 to 70 yards out in this field, I see a 7 to 8 foot tall, gray, buff, naked, masculine humanoid standing, looking out towards the hill.
Yeah, no, that's one of those, what are those from Prometheus? That's one of those deacons or whatever.
Says the beam of light from the spotlight caught its attention, and it turned around and looked at us. Its eyes were glowing from the light, and then it crouched down on all fours, trying to stay out of the spotlight. And as soon as it did, I told my friend to floor it, and we got the hell out of there as soon as we could. Now, at first, I thought it was the Rake, but the Rake is really skinny, according to eyewitness testimony. This creature that I saw looked more like a pale mutant from the video game The Forest. This was in northeastern Oklahoma, right at the foothills of the Ozark Plateau, and it took place about 3:30 a.m., the witching hour.
Yeah, no. When you see one of those giants from Prometheus standing in a field, that means turn around.
Time to bounce.
Right? Check this one out. It says, hey guys, I'm a big fan, and I've been listening a few months before the pandemic. I enjoy all of your stories. Some, though, pique my interest more than others. I'm talking about the Glimmerman. I believe I've encountered this being in my childhood. This is a very vivid memory I've had my entire life. I grew up in Somerset, California, in an unincorporated part of El Dorado County. We lived on 5 acres. I was around 6, running around outside. I was in the front of my house by a dilapidated shed that was on the property. All of a sudden, everything went silent. I couldn't hear anything. It felt like I was deaf. No birds or anything. Not even the rustle of long dead grass in the wind. It was completely silent. I thought it was strange. And I remember my teacher at school was talking about how the eyes of a storm are often quiet. I was young and dumb, and I thought that's what it was. Suddenly, I look about 30 feet in front of me and see something making a beeline towards me, though I couldn't see anything. All I could see was the disturbance of dead oak leaves on the ground being blown towards me. I then, whatever this was, felt it pick me up, and it held me against the shed in the air. I was then dropped like nothing happened, and it seemed to vanish. I ran inside crying to my mom. That house had many paranormal encounters while we were there, from shadow men to orbs. Thanks for listening to my story. You guys rock. Garrett. So,
Garrett was accosted by the Glimmerman.
The Glimmerman picked him up.
How wild is that?
I mean, it's crazy. I understand what he's saying. Like, you could see the leaves moving where it was walking towards you. I don't know what to think of that.
And then whenever it grabs Arnold Schwarzenegger and it's holding him up until it actually materializes where you can actually see it. Remember, he's like standing in the water holding him, and he's clear until that point, and then he's like bouncing around across there. Dude, that's unnerving as hell.
All right, check this one out. It says, hey guys, I recently discovered your show, and oh my, am I hooked.
Woo, thanks.
You two are delightful together and have such fun, expressive voices and pick awesome stories.
We try.
I've had an intriguing life full of mysterious experiences, and I want to share them with people while I still can. Usually, I don't talk openly about the things I've seen, the peoples I've met, or what I've experienced, but I think it's good and safe to share here. I'll start with a few stories, and if you'd like to hear more, please let me know. The Glimmerman shows you put on recently were some of my favorites thus far. It was relieving and comforting for me to hear this show in particular because, although I've seen a great deal, my experience with a cloaked creature and my husband's separate encounter were among the weirdest. To begin, my husband and I live in Florida, for all of 2020. We lived right by a state park and a swampy pond in a grand house. We were about 50 feet from the pond and less than a 5-minute drive from the park. I mention this because I'm very wary of state and national parks due to David Paralysis' works and my own experiences. Living at this place has only strengthened my desire to steer clear of these designated parks in particular. I have a small YouTube channel myself which focuses on topics similar to yours. At least these days it does. 2020 changed my entire life. Anyways, I was filming one day in my kitchen in July of 2020. I was filming a tarot reading, since that's what my channel was all about at that point in time. I sat at my kitchen table facing the front door. Our home had mostly open floor plan, and you could see from the front door all the way through to the back sliding patio doors, which included a direct path from the front door to the back door and through the kitchen. When I filmed, I sat at my kitchen table facing the front door, and I could see it totally unobstructed. During the filming of this reading early this afternoon, on a blindly bright sunny day in a home full of light, I saw the Glimmerman in my house. Now, it's important for me to say that I love the forest, the northern forest anyways. I have my home decorated with realistic pine trees. And at that point, I had a beautiful faux pine by the front door. Mid-reading, I heard the tree by the door jostle, and I looked up to see it tipping back and forth in a tall, thick, semi-transparent, frosted glass-looking being in the loose shape of a humanoid running past the tree and down the hallway that led to my craft room. My husband's studio, he's a creator too, and his bathroom. It was at least 6 foot tall and 3 feet wide or thick that I could see, and it was moving quickly. Oddly though, this being was graceful and moved with superhuman perfection. I had been in the middle of a sentence and, on camera, broke the reading to call out, "Hello? Who's there?" I'm used to seeing things and more, so I wasn't afraid, but I was startled. I sat there with my cards in my hand, staring at the place where it had disappeared down the hallway, and was wondering if I should dare to follow whomever it was to that portion of the home. I decided firmly against it because clearly that person or being didn't want to be seen or pursued by me. After a moment, I said to the camera, "I think I just had an experience." And I tried to pick up with the reading while still keeping my eyes and ears open, in case this thing was going to show itself or attack me. It was stressful, and things only got weirder after that experience. I'm so grateful that we left that property. My husband one night, several months later, was lying in bed with me sometime around 10 or so, and I was almost asleep, but he was awake watching TV or sometimes staring off into the distance, as he put it, because he was tired but still wired after his long day at work. Out of nowhere, my husband shook me awake and said, "I saw it. I saw it," in an excited, shocked whisper. I said, "What? What?" "I saw the cloaking thing. I saw the technology. I just saw it, like what you said a while ago." Now, I sat up a little and asked him to explain, since it was pitch dark in the room except for the TV and light coming in from the kitchen. Whereabouts I always insisted on leaving a light on. He pointed to the top of the door frame, which was a glow and soft, diffused ivory light from the other room. It was right there. It was a somewhat large patch of transparent but warped air. I saw it move, like it was floating or crawling. Now, we stayed up a while, comparing notes. I had seen the full body of the thing, and it had frosted glass look. Between rushing, it seemed to have purposely, or maybe not so purposely, almost knocked over a tree. His hand had moved slowly, but it was crystal clear, about 1 by 2, and he couldn't see an exact shape. Now, my husband had never had any paranormal experiences until meeting me. Now we both have them and openly talk about them. I share our closest memories and secrets about my experience with this guy, and I'm grateful to finally have another experiencer with whom to share life. He loves this stuff now and wants to meet other people's and see even more. Life is magical. I hope these stories help and that I'll hear back from you. I'm joining your elite circle soon and cannot wait to hear your upcoming Halloween and holiday shows. My friends, much joy, Bridget. Again, this is only the second time I've heard of a Glimmerman like being in someone's house.
Yeah.
But what's crazy is that her husband saw it too.
Yeah.
Separately.
Dude, that's wild.
So there are talks about the Glimmerman being nothing more than technology that our government has, right?
Mm-hmm.
If that was the case, why would they be in someone's home?
Why would you take that chance to come into someone's home? Here's my take, exactly the way you're going. Just because you're invisible doesn't mean you move that way, right? You still have to physically open a door.
Yeah.
The predator still had to physically do things.
Yes, you have to use the bathroom.
Yes.
You'd get thirsty. You would sneeze.
Yeah.
I mean, but
you're still going to make noise. Your
not,
weight distribution on a home's floor on anything is going to make sound.
That's why I don't buy that it's a person just in a suit.
There's more to it. No, I'm with you. There's more to it. It's an unnerving feeling. It's very wild. She's doing a tarot reading and it's on the whole thing's going on like, dude, that's disturbing.
That is cool.
Yeah.
Have you ever had a tarot reading?
No, I
never have either.
I've had a rune reading.
I've
never had a tarot reading. I would like to have one. I don't know enough about it, but yeah. I always think it's cool.
Part of me wants to know and then part of me don't. Like if you know the end's coming, like I kind of don't want to know. It changes things.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. I mean, what was that movie I watched where everybody was like, you're going to learn, do you want to see how you're going to die, right? Like you want to know when it is and how it's going to be.
I would not.
Whole thing.
If somebody gave me that option, I would choose no.
Really?
I don't want to know how it's going to go.
I think I might choose.
I think it would change the way I do things.
You know, they might build a fire under your ass to do more.
But not if you know that that's going to happen, because then it wouldn't matter what you do. That's the end result.
It does, but you would, I think, spend more time with people that mattered.
That's true.
I think I would like to know. I would like to know when my date was, like the exact time, the exact date, because I like to plan for things. So I would know, okay, I've got this amount of time. I kind of try to live that way anyway. I kind of try to live like I've only got a week.
I know that after being at that rehab center, I don't want to go out like that.
You and I, we've already had this discussion and we ain't going out like that.
I hope not.
Dude, no, you better kill me. That's the whole plan. You're supposed to put one behind my ear or something like that. And remember, I'm supposed to go ahead and take you out, show you the pretty flowers, like take you out to see the rabbits. And then that's it. It's over.
Like Old Yeller?
Yeah, it's done. Like Lenny, right? Of Mice and Men. Like that's how this is going to go down. Hey, real quick before we get out of here, do you know what kind of eggs an evil chicken lays?
No.
Deviled eggs.
That makes sense.
That's real talk.
Right? That makes sense. Well, if you have any stories you want to share them with Karen and I, do not hesitate. Email the show, expandedperspectives@yahoo.com, just like the stories I read. We appreciate those, and you'll probably get to hear them right on the air. Or you can call the show, 888-393-2783. That's 888-393-BRUD, if you don't feel like typing it all out. And be as thorough as you can. Tell us every detail you can think of in the story. We'd much rather have the story too long than too short.
Yes.
You can follow us on all forms of social media. Again, thank you for all the birthday wishes.
It's a good rapper.
I had a good time.
Too short.
Yeah, very good. What do you got planned for the rest of your week?
Baby, I'm headed to College Station this weekend.
That's right, the big move.
That's right. My daughter is starting A&M, so I've got to take her down there. The wife and I are moving her down and getting her moved in, and she's already been talking to her roommate for the last month or so and all that stuff, and now she's down there making up all these plans of what she's going to do, and then next weekend my daughter turns 21, so I have a very happening week, and then like we said, we've been dealing with medical stuff with my mother-in-law. It's not going great, and same with your father and all that stuff, so it's been stressful. You know, we've been dealing with it as best we can. I know people
have reached out to me, and Pop the human cockroach, he's doing okay. Like he's just still recovering from
slowly this time
from falling and hitting his head and breaking his ankle. But he is in a rehab where they're trying to get him walking again. But he's going to be okay.
Yeah,
I think he'll be home very soon. I mean, he's been home and then had to go back a couple times, but. Yeah, I think he's going to be okay.
He's no spring chicken, so it just takes a little bit.
He's not on death's door, so for anybody that's worried.
Yeah.
You just, when you're 70 years old and you break a bone.
And you've already had a head injury.
It takes a little bit to recover from that. You're not just going to bounce back. Boy, don't I know. When I pulled a muscle on my leg the other day playing with
Standing
Jacob,
up.
and it hurt for a week. And I'm like, geez, this is the new reality.
I unfortunately don't have that kind of information to pass on. But the what we're dealing with is not. It's a very
death is imminent.
It's a very grim outlook. Yes, so we're dealing with all that right now.
All right, man. Well, I hope everybody out there has a good week. Stay safe. Wear a mask. Wash your hands. Till next time. I'm Kyle. He's Cam.
Peace, y'all.